Welcome to the session, Hardeep.
Thank you.
So we'll start off with the question that should precede the title of the session, which is about GYAN. So I want to preface that. What makes the BJP so confident? And you're saying that GYAN se dekhenge. And GYAN is the combination of Garib, Yuva, Annadata and Nari. So what has the government done for these four sections? If we look at it, although the Niti Aayog says that the number of poor people, people under poverty line has come down, we are still feeding 81 crore people free ration and many other schemes. Yuva, the perception that the opposition is building is that there is unemployment and they're not getting their due. Then Annadata, agriculture is under stress, so we have PM Kisan and other schemes. And Nari, I mean the simple factor of safety and social pressures. And of course, this year the labor participation rate has improved. But so how do you justify the idea of GYAN?
You see, when you decide on a narrative, you must also do context setting. Let me start with one of the figures that you cited, or one of the figures you wanted to cite, but you didn't get there. The Niti Aayog's estimate that we have lifted 250 million people out of multi-dimensional poverty.
Correct.
Yeah. I have not come across any comment which questions that. And let me do a bit of international context setting for you. When the UN established what was called the Millennium Development Goals, because all your issues, all the factors you mentioned are covered either by the Millennium Development Goals or the Sustainable Development Goals. When the UN decided on the Millennium Development Goals, there were many people like me who said that the goals themselves were conceptualized in the think tank of the West, which is the OECD, okay? And then they were thrust on governments who pick it. And the honest God's truth is, the MDGs succeeded because a so-called large developing country, China, you can argue whether it's developing, now it's $19 trillion economy. that economy succeeded in lifting hundreds of millions of people out of multidimensional poverty. You use the word sometimes abject poverty, extreme poverty. You can have a separate discussion, Shankar, on those. When the Sustainable Development Goals were formulated, I was then the ambassador to the UN, and I made it a point to say that the Sustainable Development Goals must be set by the participants themselves. These are not just governmental targets, but social, civil society, NGOs, everybody must participate. So what we ended up doing was to produce a certain number of goals, 17 sets of goals and other sub-goals. And interestingly, the Sustainable Development Goals, before they were formally implemented, something called a game-changing phenomena happened in Delhi. Mr. Modi assumed responsibility from May 2014. And the central schemes which were outlined and started being implemented from June 2015, in a way, all already anticipate the SDGs which came in slightly later. Now, I'm willing to go through each of those things that you said. I make the submission to you that the figure of 250 million people being lifted out of multidimensional poverty, in fact, is on the conservative side. Because the measurement of those indices and the identification of people follows a certain pattern. The fact that you give 800 million people or 80 crore people 3 meals of dry ration in a day does not in any way detract from or undermine the fact that you are lifting people out of poverty. Let me make a submission to you. I don't know, Prabhu's a student of economics, I'm not, maybe you are. But there is a basic sui generis character to the Indian economy and the Indian situation. Shankar, we are a $4 trillion economy or thereabouts. 2 days ago, we also became the world's fourth largest stock market. 4 trillion by global standards is an impressive figure. But 4 trillion hides the fact that you are the world's most populous country and you still have very well-defined developmental challenges. And what are those developmental challenges? Your per capita income is still low. So, let me go to what we have done.
The per capita income is not only low, it is at variance, and if you connect north and south, Uttar Pradesh, Bihar and all are double, half of what the national per capita.
Yeah, that's
so those are challenges.
I am not going into that challenge.
Yeah.
I am going into the Viksit Bharat challenge. If you want India to be a developed economy by 2047, which is the avowed aim, and my submission to you is you'll be a Viksit Bharat or a developed nation well before that. And let me tell you what I think is happening. 4 trillion will go to 5 trillion by 2025. It'll go to 10 trillion by 2030. The per capita, which is close to about $2,800, will go upwards onto a trajectory when between 2030 and 2045, etc., that thing is at, and you're well on wing. What are the definitions of a developed economy? IMF has one definition, World Bank has another definition, and so on. What is it that is being done for each of them? Since I happen to have the privilege of two ministries which are reasonably central to the discussion we are having, let's start with housing and urban affairs. When you build toilets, and you've built over 11 crore toilets, it helps the dignity of the girl child. When you do Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, or you give affordable homes to sections of the economically weaker sections of society, and the Malikana Haq, or the title is in the name of the lady of the house, it has a fundamental difference. When you introduce a scheme like Swanidhi, which is for street vendors, why do you introduce the scheme? You can say capital expenditures, 10 lakh crore budget, this, that, and that. But you know, in a society which was in a total lockdown situation during the pandemic, there were some sections of society which were very vulnerable. I mean, if you have to buy your stuff to sell and go to the money lender for interest at 18%, and you can't even ply your wares, you have a problem. So it became a scheme which was rolled out in 2020, and today it's a roaring success. Who are the beneficiaries of that? If you look at it, 43% are the Mahila. Many of them are scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, and so on. If you go into the other scheme, let me come to one fast forward this thing. 50% plus of our population is ladies. We have gone from from our sisters, we have gone from a system of women-centered development to women-led development. So I won't come to that 33% reservation, I'll come to that in a minute. But take a scheme like Ujjwala. I mean, you're still very young, but when I was young, and that was many moons ago, to get hold of a gas cylinder, you required either to know your MP or you needed to know someone in influence. Getting a gas cylinder was pretty difficult. The total number of gas cylinders in the year 2014 was 14 crores. Today it's 32 crores. Today, under Ujjwala, which is a scheme handed out cooktop free from one of the oil companies to a gas cylinder free during the pandemic, all the Ujjwala beneficiaries got 3 extra cylinders, and the gas cylinder which comes in Ujjwala has got a 300 rupees subsidy built into it. That scheme has already benefited 10 crore, 34 lakhs, absolutely. As we speak, it goes on. And there's near saturation. So my submission to you is, whether you're talking about farmers, whether you're talking about youth, whether you're talking about women, they are all the focus. In fact, the Prime Minister's new forecasts, which we defined, were not the ones that you and I have grown up discussing, but are precisely these, the ones you're mentioning. So I could roll out that that is the plan. Now, if you were to argue in an academic setting, well, you could do more, I'll be the first to support you. But if on the other hand, you want to compare it to what happened earlier and what is happening now, I want to give you some figures. On the urban side, Shankar, the entire spend on all the schemes of the urban sector in the 10 years between 2004 and 14 came to 1,57,000 crores. In the 9.5 years or nearly 10 years now of the Modi government, it is 11 times higher. It is about 19 lakh crores. Now, that money, you can come to my office on a portal, I'll tell you under each scheme, what is the central government this thing and what is the other. If you want to look at infrastructure, I mean, as I mentioned a figure of 10 lakh crore provisioning, every year is going up by 30%. And that's what has saved us in the last few years. Number of airports, metro system, we were going to have the world's second largest metro system. So GYAN, you can have a subjective discussion if you're heading towards being a knowledge-based society. And I think this forum is about education. It's meant to reach out to the administrators of education. It is meant to reach out to the students. I can tell you, and I could conclude my answer, which has been somewhat longer than I'd wanted to. When I was, I'm new to this sector. I spent 39 years dealing with foreign and security policy and trade policy. But if somebody asked me earlier, if you were to buy property, what would you look at? You would look at location, location, location. If you want to develop a country, I can tell you with total, without any ambiguity, education, education, education. And I think all this adds up to what you call GYAN or a knowledge-based society, or this is what the direction in which we are going.
Thank you. That was a comprehensive answer. I mean, there are arguments and counter-arguments, and as to whether I learned economics or not, I don't know whether you remember, I met you when I was in Cambridge University.
No, you met me. You and I also went in on a Sunday afternoon. We went to see a very senior corporate giant, and I remember, my memory is still functioning.
Okay. So the one thing that now we are in Chennai and this part of India is like highly urbanized. There are other parts of India that are not urbanized. In 2014, one of the brightest ideas in the manifesto was building 100 new cities. Then it became 100 smart cities. Now, whatever was the issue with it, we have something like, I think, 3,900 census towns, and nobody's sort of...
4,900.
4,900 census towns. Isn't that developing, making those towns, I mean, urban, giving them the status, wouldn't that create employment? Wouldn't that create planned urbanization? Wouldn't that create smart cities? You had spoken about this when you took over, but I don't know where that idea is.
Oh, when you speak about things only when people like you and Prabhu say, "Wo kahan gayi smart city?" But when it's done, let me give you a few statistics. First, what we said in the manifesto. The honest God's truth is, when the manifesto was being drafted, I don't think anybody drafting the manifesto had ever dealt with a smart city. There's nothing like that in the world, by the way. So when they drafted the manifesto in the run-up to the 2014 election, I'd even pointed this out then. Say, we will build 100 new smart cities. This 100 new smart cities presupposes that they will all be greenfield. That will be built from scratch. But the whole scheme was conceptualized in order to invite proposals from cities which would then be selected or elected through a process of jury selection.
Fair enough.
So let me explain it. So ultimately what happened, people realized that you can't build 100 new smart cities, you have to do something about the existing one. So you followed the approach of what is called area-based development. And the area-based development, New Delhi is a smart city. Now there are 90 of those area-based development ones, and 10 are greenfield. By the way, that project, which means small amount from the central government, some through public-private partnership from the state governments, etc., it's a roaring success because now 90% of those projects have got completed and the rest will be completed in a few months. What are the nature of those projects? If you look at, let's say, Surat, for instance, issues relating to women's security have suddenly CCTV cameras all around, and you can see the difference when you empirically compare them. Again, your reference point is 4,900. The Smart Cities project was never designed to smartify all, but the experience has been so positive that now people are talking in terms of smart districts, smart this, smart that. A question that is asked now, since we have done completion of that 5-year circle, 10 years in some, what would happen next? Will you get a smart cities Rev 2? Like in Swachh Bharat Mission, we got Swachh Bharat Mission 2.0, we got Amrut 2.0, and the provisioning is very impressive because there you find that the provision for Swachh Bharat Mission and Amrut 2.0 is 4,71,000 crores. So what were you going to do next? I think on that a call needs to be taken, but what is happening is that the learning experience from that smart cities, basically you're using technology in order to do proper urban planning. You are using technology to do a lot of, I'll give you one example. In 2014, out of all the waste that we produced, when the country produced, only about 14-15% was subjected to proper scientific waste processing. Today it's 76%. And another 2 years' time, we will have to do 100%.
But honestly, if you look around the cities of India, it doesn't seem so.
No, there are some cities like Delhi which have legacy dump sites. Legacy dump sites. The bioremediation for that is also on. But as I said, if you're in 2014 you were processing 14%, now you're doing 76%, it must be getting better. But I think even the bioremediation, there are two which worry me. One in Delhi, Ghazipur, and another one in Mumbai. Those we need to get done, and because they have become so huge. But now you have reasonably good technology for waste to energy, waste to etc. So that is work in progress.
Okay, so there is second large ministry that you handle. I mean, there are questions as to why India has not been able to sort of explore new fields. When this government came in, we were importing, I think, 67 or 68% of our fuel needs. Now the numbers gone up. Our energy needs, we import more than 80%. So there is now some buzz that you have found fields in Kakinada, that you're looking at fields in Kaveri Basin. What's the story there? Let's have some headline.
No, there's no buzz. These are facts.
Huh.
See, I'll tell you, first of all, since you've got an educated audience here, let me just tell you. Oil exploration and production is not something that you decide one day that I'm going to do this and you get it. These are highly capital intensive ventures. You don't even have that much of expertise. You didn't.
True. But my question is simple. How much oil or gas have you
I'm
found in Kakinada?
coming to that. If you take a decision today to explore a new field, the preparations you make in terms of how much money you will spend, it'll take a few years. I make the submission to you, just as in the urban space, and I'm not making a political point, there was complete neglect. We didn't have an urban policy before 2014, okay? A lot of people who will come and give you bump about, oh, we did this, we did that. We did, GNURM was the housing scheme of the Congress party, Jawaharlal Nehru Urban Rehabilitation Mission. You know, they total sanctioned 13 lakh homes and only got 8 lakhs. And we've done 4 crores. So this is the difference between 8 lakhs and 4 crores. Today in Kakinada, we have struck oil. And when the announcement made, as a minister in charge, I have to choose my words carefully. If I get too excited, I have members, very close friends now in the opposition, who distort every little thing you say. I'll say, oh, they'll say, "Arey, usne bola, itna nahi hua." So I deliberately underplayed it. I said that by May or June, we'll have 45,000 barrels a day. It'll be more. KG Basin, all that is correct. We had years of not doing anything. As far as that figure of 62, 65, 87, Shankar, today our energy utilization is 3 times the global average. We consume 5 million barrels a day. And even with the exploration and production, ENP
Still
going,
be importing.
we will, because the economy is, firing on all 6 cylinders. So what will happen? I think 3 things will happen. One, ENP is going up. But the green transition, ethanol blending has gone up from 1.4% to 12% now, and we had a target of 20% by 2030. We'll do it by 2025. We've saved about 70,000 crores as a result of the ethanol blending at local. Green hydrogen is going to do it. So what is the picture I see the coming time? On the ENP side, a fundamental mistake we made then was, we asked people to come and invest large amounts of money And when they found oil or something, they'll say, hey, hamara to sovereign asset hai. They would run away. They had bad experience. All the big companies went away. Today, we changed that. We've gone from production sharing arrangements to revenue sharing arrangement. And out of the 3.5 million square kilometers of sedimentary basin, we have opened it up. We have made 1 million square kilometers, which was a no-go area. We've opened it up. We've taken all the data from here and we put it in a data repository in the University of Texas in Houston. And there are 4 or 5 big companies in the world, you know them and I know them. One of them is devoting 25% of its supercomputing time to the data of the Andaman Basin. So things are now happening.
So the question that the young audience here who are all riding two-wheelers and want to own four-wheelers and all are saying that the Petroleum Ministry is collecting money and is okay, fair enough that the government has to spend on welfare, but when is the fuel price going to come down?
So the first thing I want to tell my young friends who haven't asked the question, and you're not so young, you're asking it on their behalf, is that India is the only country in the world, apart from Japan, where fuel prices actually have come down over the last 2 years. In fact, in India, petrol prices between 21 and 23 have come down, depending on which reference period you take, minimum of 5%, and diesel prices 1%. No other, in the countries around India, Sri Lanka, Pakistan, mind-boggling.
But now we can't count the countries around.
We are bigger than all of them.
Yeah, we can't count because.
Okay, I'm glad. No, but I can tell you 2 things, Shankar. One, if you are importing.
No, my question is simple.
When will they come down?
No, we are moving into biofuels. The Prime Minister's announced 1 crore solar, rooftop solar, and I really hope that you implement this in the urban space because that scope is much bigger. And so once we have the combination of different energy packets coming through, would you be able to reduce the level of taxation on petroleum products? Would the prices come down? Is there a scope for people to feel achhe din?
You know, one of the things I have not done for about 7 years that I've been a minister is to answer questions on behalf of my colleagues. So this question on taxes is something you should address to Nirmala ji. But what I can tell you as a line minister, throughout this period that we have talked about, period of turbulence, you know, COVID, Russia, Ukraine, the Middle East, in the first phase of it, we had massive under-recoveries by the companies. They were losing a lot of money per liter of petrol and diesel. We had to compensate them for their losses. The private sector companies went on basically.
Yeah, they shut the pumps and all. Yeah,
No, they didn't sell at their pumps. They would put up line. If you want cheaper petrol, go 3 kilometers down. You'll get it there cheaper. So public sector companies were good corporate citizens. They played ball. Now, after a long time, they're actually, I hope they're not having under-recoveries. A few days ago, I thought diesel, but somebody told me they're doing all right. I've seen the third quarter results also. Our imports of crude oil still are about 86% is what we are importing. If the prices remain like this, now there's a big if, and if Red Sea doesn't result in, the Houthi attacks don't result in this thing, I think there could be a case for them going forward. But that's not something we tell the oil companies. It's a deregulated sector. You know, they are smart businessmen also. They keep their prices low because if they had raised their prices when there would have been chaos in the market. So today we have a situation where going forward, all fingers on your hand, your toes, everything crossed. Going forward, a case might come up where, today I read reports also. Some of these are speculative reports. But I think you have a situation where a case could be made out.
So, Mahol acha hai, the Vatavaran is good. There is.
Good means what?
For the party, for the government.
It's not good. It's not good. If you have to have gradations, you have average, satisfactory, good, very good.
So how
brilliant.
How would you rate your party's chances in 2024?
You still want to ask that question?
Yeah, I want to ask because there's a follow-up.
I predicted 2014 because somebody told me that 37 years we hadn't had a government which had 272 on its own. Yeah. I predicted that. In 2019, I predicted a very clear crossing of 300. And before the events recent events, I was always saying 15, 20% above 300. So if you say 10%, it becomes 330. If you say
So
15.
let's have a number for 2024.
No, number, it's still
Still range.
range. I told you over 340, over 345. But as I said, the getting numbers game starts when you have a code of conduct, when you have electioneering going on. Just now the mood is very positive. But that, shouldn't put a number on it. I mean, I've been around in this game long enough to know. I mean, I'm not a psephologist. And psephologists and those other characters, those, वो क्या कहते हैं वो जो, वो क्या opinion में नहीं क्या वो जो, वो the guys who do those surveys, those guys should close shop before the last election. I mean, we have friends in the opposition who don't want us to succeed. I mean, there's a gentleman out on a Bharat Nyaya Yatra. I mean, I think he's just had his Nyaya plank removed from under his feet. What happened? I mean, in TMC will not join him in West Bengal. Punjab mein Aam will not join him. So I'm not basing my figures on that. Not at all. In fact, my case is that you need a credible opposition. I think 340, 350 is what I would be safe in putting my bet on, but we still have work to do.
So in this perfect weather, does Hardeep Puri plan to fly to Punjab and contest?
No, first of all, Hardeep Puri is not a flyer, number one. Number two, even last time, I mean, I'd come back into the party fold after a long gap. And I was given 17 days to contest. I got 41.4% of the vote with everybody trying to sabotage my election. No, now I think I've got enough time left in the Rajya Sabha and I'm not getting any younger. So I'm very happy where I am.
Okay. We'll take some questions before we end.
Good afternoon, sir. My name is Shiad, and I'm an UPSC aspirant. And it's a very pleasure to meet you, sir. So my question is, how Indian cities are getting ready to tackle urban floods, which might be intensified due to climate change? And also, how we are getting ready to tackle the increasing urban air pollution with many cities in global list of priority cities?
Okay. So he is asking, how does the government plan to tackle the mess that will follow climate change? And the second is air pollution in Indian urban cities.
I must, first of all, thank you very much. I think they are brilliant questions. First on climate change. Climate change and global warming, these are not specific to India. And I think thanks to our leadership, we abandoned the you are responsible, polluter pays principle, I didn't cause the pollution, I only caused 4%. We abandoned that line. We still stick to it in the interest of academic rigor. Because we didn't cause the global warming, frankly. Because we were so underdeveloped, is those guys who had devastating industrialization, who gobbled up the resources of the earth and produced the problem. But I think the Prime Minister, both in Paris and in Glasgow, changed it. Said we want to be part of the solution. When I was a young diplomat, not so young, I was Secretary to Government, I once asked my Prime Minister the then Prime Minister, you can guess who it is. I said, sir, I want to ask you a question. What exactly is our policy on this issue? Because he had two advisors. One who was a very vocal critic of our government, and another one who was an academic, an IAS officer, but very, very perceptive. So I said, sometimes you listen to the advice of Mr. X and sometimes Mr. Y. Because when he wanted to give this, it's not our problem, somebody else's problem, he would listen to Mr. X, the first person. And when he said, no, we are part of the solution, he would use the language of the Mr. Y. Look, make no mistake, we are all in it together. Whoever caused it, we have to solve it. So first point, insofar as the corrective action is concerned, we are all doing our bit, etc. And I'm sure we can have a separate session, or you can invite Mr. Bhupendra Yadav or anyone, they will give you. Insofar as atmospheric pollution is concerned, I'll give you a student's response. Atmospheric pollution is caused in Delhi, partly in winter by parali burning, burning of agricultural residue in Punjab and elsewhere. It's caused by vehicular traffic. It's caused by the toxicity that buildings produce. In order not to take more time, insofar as parali burning is concerned, the route to go down is you don't burn parali, you make ethanol from it. So we have a second generation ethanol plant in Panipat, in one of our companies, IOCL, where we are producing second generation ethanol from burning. There was a lot of problem in aggregation of the waste. I had to call my collaborator, the Chief Minister of Haryana, and I said, I need your help. He said, tell me what? And I said, you give 1,000 rupees per ton for people to aggregate. Because what happens is, once people realize that kachra can result in wealth, they'll say, ye to mera kachra, main nahi le jaane dunga. Same thing with aggregation. So we have a plant running beautifully there. In Northeast, we have a plant running from bamboo, okay? And this same facility in Panipat now has a third generation ethanol production from the waste gases which come out of a refinery. That's one. Insofar as vehicular traffic, and I'm glad you asked this question, no, people don't realize 70% of the vehicular traffic on our roads is two-wheelers and three-wheelers. And most of them are now going to battery swaps and so on. And for the cars, we are moving to ethanol, biofuel blending. And IOCL will, in another few days' time, have 15 fuel cell buses, huge buses running on green hydrogen as demonstration. And I think we have to accelerate towards green hydrogen. Once we do that, all the fossil fuel use will come to an end. But be realistic, you are young. You are the actual guys who will benefit from 2047. This gentleman is still young, but I'm not going to be around. So what I'm telling you is, today, the transition is taking place at a breakneck speed, all right? Now I come to buildings. The Prime Minister, Honorable Prime Minister, decided that private sector was already beginning to use green technology. But we had a global housing technology challenge for a full year. We invited all the companies in the world. They come to India not out of philanthropy or altruism. They come to India because they will make money. They have projects. So 53 technologies were shortlisted. They were incorporated into the CPWD's list. And finally, 6 of them were selected to produce lighthouse projects. 6 projects where 1,000 units are made using the most advanced green technologies, and 1,000 units in a year. And when the Prime Minister took one of those review meetings, I remember very vividly, we prepared all the statistics that these are the people working, this is the material. He said, no, he doesn't want that. He wanted to see it in real time, that is using satellite imagery and drones. So this technology, and on all fronts we are moving, but we still have to we keep sending land is a state subject. Beyond a point, the central government cannot tell a state government as to how to done it. But we keep issuing advisories on urban flooding, on, checking pollution and all these things. But it's happening.
Hello, sir. Myself, Anay Kumagan from DG Vaishnav School of Management. My question to you is, you were saying about ethanol, and I would like to know your opinion on ethanol-based cars, which Toyota is producing, and Mr. Respected Nitin Gadkari sir also seems to have advocated the same, that we need to use the hybrid cars, ethanol-based cars. So how it is going to be the future substantially, because the first preference is going to be gasoline as far as petroleum and diesel is concerned. So how do you see the future for ethanol and other products?
Thank you very much. I'm glad you asked the question. Between 2006 and 2008, from January, please, 2006 January to 2008, I had the privilege of being posted as India's ambassador to Brazil. And I got completely fascinated by the ethanol story. So I have a very senior friend sitting here. Whenever I used to come from Brazil, they used to make fun of me. They say, oh, ethanol has come, ethanol has come. Because whenever I came to Delhi, I used to talk about ethanol. Look, the beauty of ethanol is that you can make ethanol in any rural economy with minimal investment. The beauty of ethanol is that ethanol can be made from a diverse range of feedstock. In Brazil, because it's a very fortunate land, it has, 3 times our land area, it has 1/6 our population, and it has 23% of the world's freshwater reserves, they largely make ethanol out of sugarcane. The United States makes ethanol largely out of maize or makkah. We make ethanol from sugar, from maize, from agricultural waste, from bamboo, and diverse feed. Ethanol-run cars are commonplace. This 20% blending is actually a mindset problem in our case. Because when ethanol blending was tried in the previous government, we decided that we wanted 15 of our states and union territories to have 5% blending. Because we didn't have the ecosystem, we didn't succeed. By 2014, we had 1.4% blending. Then the current Prime Minister set a target of 10% blending by November 2022. We did it 5 months in advance. Target of 20% blending by 2030, we brought the target to 2025. Why this 20% blending mindset? Because somebody told us, and I'll tell you who, the Society of Indian Automobile Manufacturers, SIAM, said that if you blend 20%, you don't need to change any parts in the car. There are corrosive parts which corrode easily, and so you don't need to change anything. But I pointed out to them, and I had meanwhile become Petroleum and Natural Gas Minister, I said that in Brazil, you can go to a petrol bunk any day. And depending on the international price of petrol or ethanol, you can, in your car computer, decide whether you want 85% of petrol and 15% of ethanol, or the other way around, 85% of the other and 15% of this. So after that, and the other thing is that all the cars which are using ethanol in Brazil are also manufacturers. They are also the ones supplying cars here. So E85 cars have started coming. What I see as the future, I told you, as a result of ethanol blending so far, we have saved about 70,000 crores, and we've given that money to our farmers. When we did 10% blending, we saved 41,000 crores. We were able to give 42,400. My sense is that ethanol will become the norm. Today, we already, thanks to the Indian presidency of the G20, we have an international global biofuels alliance. When I was in Davos till a few days ago, the whole intellectual focus and energy is that the European Commission now wants to mandate 5% SAF, that is sustainable aviation fuel, blending for flying aircraft. Now, where can you manufacture the ethanol? You can only manufacture it in Brazil or in India, or maybe China, but it will consume its own. So ethanol is a great future, and ethanol's time has come. And I think in the coming time, the manufacturers, just now if you buy one of the current models of cars, you'll probably buy something which will be petrol and electric. But the next generation of cars which is coming will be ethanol and electric. So there will be displacement of fossil fuels as we go along. But no matter which way you peel this onion, at the core of it lies the fact you need to scale up ethanol production. Now you can ask me, but we don't have much sugar. I saw today the sugarcane crop is going to be higher than the forecast, the one I think I read in one of your papers. But we can also produce ethanol from seaweed. We haven't even got started. We can produce ethanol from so many other feeds. And I think that is where our scientists and technologists will be providing answers for us.
Good evening, sir. I'm Santosh Krishna from Shastra University. Am I audible?
Yeah.
Okay. With the recent conflicts of Iran and Pakistan, we obviously know that there would be a hike in oil prices and all. But what degree of impact will it have, and how long will we be escaping the sanctions of the West? I understand that India has grown as a superpower and is growing as a superpower, but then still they too hold a greater power at present.
No, there are two aspects to your question, my friend. One is, you said something about Iran and Pakistan, and I think you met the Red Sea and oil prices impact. But the other one is that how far can we avoid sanctions? Now, this, my mind is certainly not wired to receive any pressure. And I don't see why there should be any pressure on India. If your question is buying Russian oil, I don't want to let out a secret, but is very well known. The West is very happy that we buy Russian oil. Because if we don't buy Russian oil, you know what will happen? Oil price will go up to 250. So why should there be any upset? What they tell us is buy the Russian oil cheaper so that more money doesn't go into their coffer. But you know, price is not something you and I determine. We float tenders and we pay for the oil at the point of importation at our ports. So we'll float a tender saying X units of oil required. Whoever gives us the cheapest price, we'll buy from there. Insofar as the Red Sea and this thing is concerned, look, Iran and Pakistan, you know, I spent 39 years in another profession. What strikes me as very interesting about all this is, and I'm going to choose my words very carefully, that whenever there was a cross-border terrorist action against us, and we would talk to the concerned authorities, we were told, "Arey bhai, ye to non-state actors hai." अभी तो अब क्या हुआ है? वो भी तो non-state actors थे, पर non-state actors ने state actors को involve करवा दिया. So you know, this is exactly the point I've been making all these years, that these non-state actors have an umbilical relationship with the state. So that part is solved, but now I know that I read somewhere the foreign minister of Iran is going there and they'll sort it out. But we issued a statement, and a very good statement, and we said that Iran had a right to defend itself against these terrorist attacks, and the right to self-defense always comes in there.
So, given your previous avatar and life outside, do you think the conflict, Hamas and Israel, and it being cornered in 3 places, do you think it could develop into a wider conflagration, or it will be contained because of interests?
No, it will be contained, and it should be contained for a simple reason. Shankar, I don't think any country in the world today wants the outbreak of large-scale hostilities. Now, there were fundamental changes taking place in that part of the world. You know, we never heard of Israel and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia coming to terms, Iran and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. So some of the non-state actors, for whatever reason, you'll never be able to make a determination whether a non-state actor acted on his or her own, or whether they had the backing of somewhere else. But I think today, everyone who's part of this ecosystem and who has some stake in this would not want large-scale hostilities to take place. But on the price of oil, with our young friend asked, I'm not a soothsayer. I mean, tomorrow, if there is a major disruption in the supply lines, you know, then you'll never be able to say, you can reroute the thing, but insurance rates go up. What happens? So far, I think, and I'm choosing my words carefully, so far, I'm hopeful and reasonably confident that the conflict can be contained, and in the process, you know, we can keep oil prices from shooting up.
On that note, we'll end the session. Thank you very much.